Q and Review, celebrating 40 years of audio production, welcomes you to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast, recorded from our studio in the Bishopbriggs Media Centre and by our volunteers working from home. Keep up to date with Q and Review news via our Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, or Instagram at Q and Review. That's @CUEANDREVIEW, or get in touch with us directly by emailing information@qandreview.com. That's INFORMATION @CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling us on 0141 772 3979. Please like and share our podcast and give us constructive feedback.
Evening Times Sport, July 2. Steve Clarke retains SFA backing. Report by Ewan Payton. Steve Clarke's future as Scotland head coach will be left entirely up to him and not the Scottish FA. Reports suggest the SFA are happy for Clarke to continue as the national team boss despite a poor showing at Euro 2024 last month. The Scottish Sun reports that Clarke's position is not under threat. It is said that the 60-year-old will be allowed to carry on in his role if he still wants to. SFA President Mike Mulroney is believed to be a big supporter of Clarke, and that remains unchanged despite Scotland's dismal output on the park in Germany. Clarke ended the country's 22-year wait to reach a major finals by steering us to Euro 2020. However, in a repeat 3 years on, once again Scotland finished bottom of their group with 2 defeats and a draw. Hungary beat Scotland 1-0 in what was a must-win match for the Scots if they were to hold out hope of qualifying for the last 16 and become the first ever Scotland team to reach the knockout rounds. That last gasp defeat, where Clarke's team were heavily criticised for their lack of adventure, saw a second consecutive bottom place finish at a major finals. The group table read 1 point, 2 goals for and 7 goals against. The report states that Clarke and Mulroney are happy to be taking a summer break for now and will wait until the conclusion of the Euros before discussing where things go next. The former Chelsea and Liverpool assistant is contracted until after the next World Cup finals in 2026. Mulroney wants Clarke to remain in position for Scotland's next game against Poland at Hampden on September 5 in the Nations League Group A1. Clarke has been in the head coach role since 2019 when he was headhunted after his stellar work carried out at Kilmarnock. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, July 2. Stephen Gallagher hoping life can begin at 50 on senior tour. Report by Nick Roger. It's not every day you get a crested letter from the Cabinet Office. I was thinking, oh my God, what have I done? Chuckled Stephen Gallagher of this eyebrow-raising delivery from the postman. Said letter was nothing to be concerned about, of course. It was a notice informing the Scot of the award of an MBE in the King's Birthday Honours List for various services to the game that's been his life. Gallagher was already something of an MBE, mind you. Along with his uncle Bernard, and the mighty Eric Brown. The 49-year-old Gallagher remains a member of the Bathgate elite, that celebrated triumvirate of golfers who were reared at the West Lothian Mining Towns Club and all went on to be Ryder Cup players. In Bernard and Eric's case, they were captains too. Given that Stephen led Team Europe to a thumping 20.5, 9.5 win over the USA in the Junior Ryder Cup in Rome last year, he has been reinstated for the 2025 match in New York after a first European victory since 2006. Perhaps he would fancy following Uncle Bernard and the late Bomber Brown as skipper at the main event. "I think I've maybe missed the boat on that one," he said with a smile. "The Junior Ryder Cup will do me." As he climbs the Bray on the age front, he'll reach his half-century in November. Gallagher is ready for the next phase of a professional career that spans almost 30 years. In this game of great longevity, a sporting life can begin again at 50, as long-in-the-tooth campaigners on the regular tour suddenly become young rookies again on the Aldians circuit. "I can feel it coming," added Gallagher, who won the first of his 4 DP World Tour titles at the Dunhill Links Championship 20 years ago. "It's a natural evolution. You get to a certain age and it's tough to compete with the young guys. I've played 650 odd events on the tour. It takes its toll on the old body. There are not many guys who get to 50 and are still playing on the main tour. Luckily, I've managed to avoid that no man's land between the ages of 45 and 50. Some players lose their tour cards at around 45 and are in a barren area for a few years until they can play as a senior. What do you do to keep your hand in? I've been fortunate." The hugely lucrative Champions Tour in the USA is the ultimate destination for Gallagher, as he looks to pit his wits against some decorated oldies who are so golden they could be housed next to the bullion in Fort Knox. With only 5 cards available at the stern examination of the qualifying school, it's probably easier to jemmy the door of that aforementioned fort with a 9-iron than it is to earn a ticket to the tour. "It's a tough gig," admitted Gallagher, who at least does not have to go through any qualifying rigmarole to get onto the European-based Legends Tour. "Ideally, I'd keep my card on the main tour this year and go to the Champions Tour qualifying school with a free hit. The hardest thing is getting onto it, but we'll give it a go. That's where I want to be. 3 rounds and no cut on the Champions Tour is much more appealing to me these days." As he inches towards the milestone of 50, it would seem an appropriate time to reflect on a career of accomplishment. "Then again," he said, "in golf you never want to look back. You're always trying to improve. I still put in the hours. I maybe can't work as hard as I used to, which is frustrating, but that's just natural as you get on in years. I still have a huge love for the game, and hopefully I can keep going as long as I can." Those advancing years don't come themselves. The aches and pains that are par for the course have ruled Gallagher out of this week's Open final qualifier at Dundonald. And he groaned, "I tweaked my back the other week in Holland, so I had to pull out. I'm gutted. I've never actually played Royal Troon, which is odd really. My wife's family lived in Troon for 20 years, but I never had the opportunity." Despite that, golfing opportunity continues to knock for Stephen Gallagher, MBE, reports Nick Roger. Evening Times Sport, July 2. Murray withdraws from Wimbledon singles. Report by David Irvin. Andy Murray will not play singles at Wimbledon this year, in what will be his last time competing in the major tournament. The two-time Wimbledon winner has pulled out of the competition ahead of his scheduled first-round match today. Murray was set to face Thomas Maciej this afternoon. The Scotsman trained in the last few days in a bid to be fit for the tournament after undergoing surgery to remove a spinal cyst. Discussing his training session on Monday, Murray said, "It was all right. It was good. I'm going to have a chat with my team now and speak to my family and then make a decision." However, in a statement on Tuesday morning, the Murray team confirmed the Scot would not participate. The statement reads, "Unfortunately, despite working incredibly hard on his recovery since his operation just over a week ago, Andy has taken the very difficult decision not to play singles this year. As you can imagine, he is extremely disappointed, but has confirmed that he will be playing in the doubles with Jamie and looks forward to competing at Wimbledon for the last time." Chief Executive Sally Bolton said earlier this week, "We've always got plenty of scheduling challenges to face. As he said himself, Andy has earned the right to make the decision, and we will absolutely respect that. All of us have therefore got to be agile in the way that we deliver our plans, but we're really happy to do that. It's very much for Andy to make this decision and make it at the right time for him. We have got a variety of plans sitting waiting to deliver. It really is for Andy to make that call, and we'll be ready whenever that happens. There's been various conversations ongoing for some time now. Andy, of course, is very focused on his performance, not really on anything else. Once he decides to retire, and we all get the chance to celebrate him, I think you'll really see how much he has meant to not just the tennis-loving public, but the sports-loving public in the UK. I think there will be tears around the house." Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, July 2. New Tottenham signing reveals he's a huge Celtic fan. Report by Ewan Payton. New Tottenham signing Archie Gray has revealed that he's a huge Celtic fan. The 18-year-old has joined Ange Postecoglou at Tottenham from Leeds United, signing a 6-year deal. A player plus cash deal was this morning finalised between the clubs, with Joe Rodon heading to Elland Road, as well as around £30 million. Postecoglou is looking to make improvements to his squad ahead of a better tilt at his second season in charge of the Premier League team. And it's fair to say that working with the Australian played a major role in Gray's decision to join the North London outfit, especially given he is a boyhood Celtic fan. The teenager spoke to Spurs media team in a video for the club's social media channels, as he explained his decision to sign for Tottenham and how much he's looking forward to the chance to step up to England's top flight from the Championship. He said, "I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a massive Celtic fan, so I love him. My whole family loves him. I've never really said this, to be fair." Gray's great-uncle is Scottish-born Eddie Gray, who is a Leeds legend. Meanwhile, Celtic are looking to make a move for Burnley player Darrell O'Shea this summer, according to a report. July 3. Evening Times Sport. Wilfred Ndidi to Celtic chance. Report by Ewan Payton. Celtic have been offered the chance to sign long-term target Wilfred Ndidi, according to a report. Brendan Rodgers will finally have the opportunity to reunite with the former Leicester City midfielder this summer. The pair worked together during the Northern Irishman's time at the King Power. The 27-year-old became a free agent at the beginning of the month following the expiry of his contract with the Foxes. He has been linked with some of the biggest clubs in Europe in the past, including both Manchester United and Real Madrid. It is claimed that, back in 2021, Leicester wanted a whopping £52 million for him. Having helped them win the Championship title, and with the club now back in the Premier League, the Nigerian will move on to pasture new, with his deal not renewed by the recruitment team and new boss Steve Cooper. The Mirror reports that heading to Glasgow to join the Scottish Premiership champions is one route Ndidi could take. Rodgers previously praised Ndidi, telling the Leicester Mercury, "He is obviously a player that's got the good athletic ability and works very hard. I always have that sort of player, a clear, controlling player in the game. Sometimes there are a defensive type, like him, that can really press the game and play simply, or sometimes it's a more creative player, a playmaker from behind. He's got so much talent and been very impressive. He covers the ground so fast. His anticipation is very good. He reads the game, smells the danger, and to have that type of player in there, it's very important." As recently as 2023, it was reported that Real Madrid might target the player for cover in holding midfield. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, July 3. Former chairman backs Welsh Society Development Investment Vote. Report by Martin Macmillan. Motherwell's majority shareholder, the Welsh Society, has launched its vision for the future of the Fir Park Club. The plans are contained in Our Club, Our Future, Our Plan for Growth for Motherwell Football Club and the Welsh Society, and a detailed prospectus has been sent to Welsh Society members and is available online. The launch comes before Welsh Society members and club shareholders begin a 2-week voting process on July 8, after an offer from Wild Sheep Sports was recently amended. The Lanarkshire Club's board revealed plans for a £1.95 million cash injection, which would have seen control of the club shift to Eric and Courtney Barmack, Wild Sheep Sports, and ultimately end a period of fan ownership. Motherwell claim the amended deal would allow the fan ownership vehicle, which currently holds a 71% stake, to maintain a majority shareholding of 50.1%. The Welsh Society's new and wide-ranging plan has been endorsed by former Motherwell chairman Brian McCafferty, who suggested that voting for the Barmack proposal was a gamble. In a statement he said, "This is a very clear vision for Motherwell Football Club and the Welsh Society. It is full of forward-looking, achievable and pragmatic ideas to grow income while strengthening the club's community ethos and bonds with supporters. I applaud those in this Welsh Society board who have taken the initiative and develop this ambitious blueprint. For me, this document provides a clear pathway to a secure long-term future for the club, based on creative and sensible initiatives, in contrast to the gamble of putting our club and our cash reserves under the control of a largely unknown foreign investors. The plans in development since the beginning of the year take 4 strands: a new vision for Motherwell Football Club, a new approach to investment focused on local partnerships and strategic investment, a new strategy for growth of the Well Society, the identification of further opportunities around season tickets, the women's team, and off-pitch revenue growth. Well Society board member Philip Speedy said, "This is an exciting time for Motherwell Football Club, and a reinvigorated Well Society as majority shareholder. Our fans have spoken. It is time for change, and we agree. The status quo is no longer an option, with the old guard making way for fresh leadership at the football club and the Well Society. Since the election of a refreshed Well Society board in October, we have moved quickly to host a series of workshops with fans on key issues like governance, membership, events, and communications. We have established operating priorities, work streams, and are harnessing the talents of well-supporting professionals working in finance, business, governance, engagement, and communications. Working with experts, we have undertaken detailed investment modelling, aligned with the principles of fan ownership, and also reviewed in detail the proposal from Wild Sheep Sports. Our clear recommendation is for members to reject the proposal from Wild Sheep Sports, which promises little investment at a significant cost to fans. Another brighter and more ambitious future is possible. That's why we are delighted to launch our plan for growth. The prospective, developed with leading Scottish, UK and US-based advisors, promises a fresh start for fan ownership with a major investment proposal, a new fan engagement model. Report by Martin Macmillan. Evening Times Sport, July 3. Glasgow and Edinburgh Rugby discover European rivals. Report by Ewan Payton. The pools for both Glasgow Warriors and Edinburgh Rugby's respective European campaigns have been announced. Warriors will take part in next season's Investec Champions Cup, and they will take on Racing 92, RC Toulon, Harlequins, and Sale Sharks in the group stage. Franco Smith's side were one of the top seeds in the competition, courtesy of winning the BKT United Rugby Championship last week. The draw sees Smith's men learn their group stage opponents in Europe's premier competition, as they look to improve upon last season's round of 16 showing. For Edinburgh, they discovered their 24-25 EPCR Challenge Cup rivals. The Capital Club will reunite with a couple of familiar faces, including Gloucester Rugby and the Aveyron Bayonnets, who the club both faced in last year's competition, with Edinburgh beating the latter in the round 16 at Scottish Gas Murrayfield. BKT United Rugby Championship side Scarlets have also been drawn in Edinburgh's pool, the sides having faced off in last year's pool stages in addition to their regular league meetings. Edinburgh have never played the two further sides completing the pool, with top 14 side Vannes and Georgia's Black Lion completing the group. On the draw, head coach Sean Everett added, "It is an exciting pool, with a couple of teams we know well, having played them last season. We could also be going into the unknown if we face Black Lion and Vannes, who are two strong teams that will be looking to lay down a marker in the competition. The European nights at Hive Stadium have such a buzz about them. We cannot wait to get started." Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, July 3. Rangers could set up Hampden deal. Report by Ewan Payton. Rangers are reportedly set to strike a deal with the Scottish FA to play their home matches at Hampden Park at the beginning of the new season. Ibrox is currently out of use due to ongoing construction works being carried out on the Copeland Road stand. It became clear around a fortnight ago that the stadium would not be fit for purpose for the opening games of the Scottish Premiership campaign, as well as the club's Champions League qualifiers. This has left Chairman John Bennett the conundrum of trying to find Rangers a temporary stopgap to meet the demand of the 50,000-strong Rangers home support, leaving realistically only Hampden and Murrayfield as viable options. It seems the former is a goer, with the Daily Record reporting that Rangers are on the brink of tying up a deal to play there. They state that conversations with the SFA have been described as extremely complicated, but they are confident an agreement could be signed off by next week. Discussions with Scottish Rugby remain ongoing over the possibility of renting Murrayfield as well. The Edinburgh Stadium has a capacity of 67,000, and Rangers will play Manchester United in a friendly match there this summer. SFA President Mike Mulroney and Chief Executive Ian Maxwell are keen to facilitate Philippe Clement and his players. A contingency plan is set to be triggered, with the pitch at the National Stadium due to be relaid following Pink's concert recently. Scotland's first game back at Hampden is on September 5 against Poland in the Nations League. A date in which the works being carried out at Ibrox will be finished has yet to be finalised, with delays to materials causing havoc. Meanwhile, Rangers have announced Edmiston House will house events for all pre-season friendlies. That means that these pre-season friendlies will be broadcast live there, with watch party events for the upcoming 4 fixtures. Supporters will be able to watch the matches on big screens with state-of-the-art sound system for a £3 entry fee. A new outdoor drinking area will also be in operation for the pre-season events. For matches against Manchester United and Union Berlin, special guests will be present with activity from Rangers TV at the venue just outside Ibrox. Rangers kick off their pre-season against Ajax in the Netherlands on July 13, before facing Manchester United at Murrayfield on July 20. Philippe Clement's side will then take on Birmingham in England on July 24, before travelling to face Union Berlin in Germany on July 27. A club statement read, "This summer you can watch all of Rangers' summer friendly matches in Edmiston House, presented by Parks Motor Group. For just £3, you can watch the game on big screens with our state-of-the-art sound system. You can also enjoy our new drinks options, including large pints, and these can be enjoyed in our new outdoor drinking area. For the Manchester United and Union Berlin matches, we will also have special guests and activity from Rangers TV. Tickets are available now for Edmiston House package holders, and a general sale will begin. Evening Times Sport, July 3. Hagi reassuring injury update. Report by Mark Walker. Jorge Hagi has reassured fans son Giannis is okay after the Rangers star was taken to hospital following Romania's Euro 2024 exit. The Ibrox outcast had to go to get tests in Munich as a precaution after a head knock during their round of 16 defeat to the Netherlands. He played on with netting on his head, but was later subbed. And his famous father, former Real Madrid and Barcelona icon Jorge, had no concerns about his son, who spent last season on loan at La Liga side Alaves. He said, "I was not scared by Giannis's injury. It is part of the game, being a contact sport. He is fine now. Let's congratulate this Romania team. They went down in history. It is clear that when you leave the groups, you meet very good opponents, and the Dutch are a very good team. They had control of the match. We did what we could, but it's a process. You learn from every match. Sometimes that's all you can do. You have to look ahead and think about how to become better. We have to be positive. We got through our group, and I am proud of the Romanian team, of all of them." Meanwhile, Hamza Egamani's move to Rangers has edged closer after the player bid an emotional farewell to his current club. The 21-year-old striker will seal his move to the Scottish Premiership imminently and is en route to Glasgow. He has sent a heartfelt thank you to FAR Rabat in Morocco for playing their part in his development up until this point in his career. Posting on social media, he wrote, "My success comes only through Allah. In Him I trust, and Him I turn." Report by Mark Walker. Evening Times Sport, July 4. Clement is candidate for Belgium job. Report by Mark Walker. Rangers manager Philippe Clement is a candidate to take charge of his country, according to Belgium legend René van der Eycken. Belgium were bundled out of the Euros after a dismal campaign, which saw them eventually eliminated by France in the round of 16. Manager Domenico Tedesco is under serious pressure after yet another Belgian flop at a major tournament, and Ibrox boss Clement's name was mentioned on the list of possible successors as Belgium started their post-mortem from the Euros. Former Belgian boss Van der Eycken, who scored in the European Championships final in 1980 as a player, and also managed Anderlecht, Standard Liège, and 20 in Sheddy, put Clement's name forward. He said, "I'm not so much in favour of another foreign national coach. For me, Philippe Clement is a candidate, but he is stuck at Rangers. Many other Belgian managers are not available as well." Clement won 38 caps for the Belgian team between 1998 and 2007 and scored against Bulgaria 21 years ago. However, Tedesco looks set to get a vote of confidence to lead Belgium into the 2026 World Cup qualifiers. Meanwhile, Cantwell's transfer exit emerges, and he could swap Rangers for Saudi Arabia this summer, according to reports. It is claimed the midfielder has attracted transfer interest from the Saudi Pro League, with Rangers willing to sell. The Scottish Sun report Ibrox Chiefs would sanction a transfer exit for Cantwell should a deal materialise. Al Qadasiyah are reportedly interested in Cantwell and keeping ties on the playmaker this summer with intentions for a transfer swoop. The same club previously landed James Bisgrove from his post as Rangers chief executive, with a reunion with Cantwell in Saudi not off the cards. It is thought Bisgrove could raid his former club, with Cantwell a possible target, and the club is also monitoring James Tavernier. The ambitious Saudi club signed former Real Madrid centre-back Nacho last week, and could turn their attention to Cantwell or Tavernier as possible next targets. Both Cantwell and Tavernier remain contracted at Rangers, with the pair back in training at the club's Auchenhowie base last week, ahead of pre-season friendlies later this month. Meanwhile, Rangers will look to recoup the £4.5 million fee that was shelled out for cereal desserts. Greek outfit PAOK have been heavily linked with a transfer move for the Ibrox striker, with clubs in France and Spain also registering their interest in the forward. Further, it's understood the situation is also being closely monitored in Saudi as the Desserts considers his options ahead of the new term. Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, July 4. Nothing ever comes easy for me, says Rodgers. Report by Joe Donnelly. Despite having won all but one domestic competition entered during his time as Celtic manager, Brendan Rodgers is adamant he and his team's successes are invariably underpinned by hard work. In his 2 spells in the Celtic dugout, the Irishman has clinched 9 trophies, 7 during his first tenure between 2016 and 2019, and 2 upon his return last summer, a haul that includes 2 domestic trebles. In fact, last season's League Cup is the only trophy that has managed to elude the 51-year-old in Scotland, when a well-contested last 16 tie against Kilmarnock last August saw the hosts triumph 1-0. Nevertheless, he and his players' hard work from there on saw Celtic clinch a traditional League and Cup double come May 25 this year, when the Parkhead side overcame Rangers at Hampden in the Scottish Cup final. Speaking in an exclusive interview with the Celtic View, the manager said, "I was not a big-name player, so I never had that protection of being that, so nothing has ever come easy for me in my coaching and professional life. This season was no different. There were other different challenges within that, but that's where I always feel I'm at my best. When the challenge is there and the pressure is on, then that's something I enjoy proving the point. So from a professional perspective, I was really pleased that we grew as the season went on, because that's what is important. Coming in, picking up a group of players and convincing them to work how we want to work, and then seeing that develop and grow as the season goes on." Rodgers described Celtic's double triumph as absolutely brilliant, before saying it set everyone up for an enjoyable summer, his players and the club's supporters alike, and the Irishman added, I am very lucky to manage such an amazing club, and I want to be here for as long as I can and bring as much success as I can. Report by Joe Donnelly. Evening Times Sport, July 4. Open at Royal Troon is teed up for success, but at what cost? Report by Christy Dorsey. As golf enthusiasts look forward to the Open at Royal Troon, there is little clarity about the true costs of the prestigious tournament and its impact on the game's general finances. While all involved are keen to talk about the economic benefits of hosting the Open, its organisers are far more cagey when it comes to discussing the costs of staging the oldest professional golf tournament in the world. First played in 1860, the inaugural British Open was a relatively modest affair, with 8 golfers competing over 3 rounds at the 12-hole links course at Prestwick Golf Club in Ayrshire. There was no prize money on offer, and for many years the Open was not the sport's most followed event, as challenge matches between top players drew larger crowds. This year's competition, kicking off later this month at Royal Troon, is sold out, thus ensuring a record attendance for a Troon Open of 250,000, with adult ticket prices ranging from £25 for the practice day on July 14 up to £110 for the final round of the championship on July 21. It will be an increase of more than 70,000 people from the last time the event was held at Royal Troon in 2016, when Henrik Stenson hit a record low score to see off Phil Mickelson in what is widely regarded as one of the greatest Open contests. The all-time record attendance of 290,000 was set at the 150th Open at St Andrews in 2022, the last time the event was hosted in Scotland. That year marked the start of a financial comeback for St Andrews Links Trust, SALT, S-A-L-T, the charity in charge of the historic Old Course and a further 6 public linked courses in the area. Accounts released earlier this year show an operating profit of £11.5 million for SALT in 2023, up from £3.7 million in 2022, which has allowed the organisation to repay more than £8 million of debt accumulated during the COVID lockdown and travel restrictions of 2020 and 2021. SALT Chief Executive Neil Coulson says 2022 was a bounce-back year with the release of pent-up demand from the pandemic period. However, there was also a cost in terms of reduced capacity for regular play while preparations for the Open took place. And he said, "It is quite a significant impact, to be honest. If you think across our whole estate and facilities, we actually have closures of various courses and clubhouses and other facilities right from the spring through until the tournament. So the actual impact for some parts of the business would probably start in the early part of the spring. Then, if you think of everything off-site that extends to the end of the summer, so the impact, whether it's a golf course or a clubhouse or some element of that, is quite extensive throughout the year." The international governing body, R&A, is officially responsible for bearing the staging costs of the Open, but how this breaks down is unclear. Even the total top-line cost of putting on the event is regarded as commercially confidential. Asked how the R&A compensates for lost playing time on the course and other expenses, Mr. Coulson said, It varies, to be honest. It will vary place to place, and it's not something that we can talk about really. It's a similar line from the R&D. The cost of staging the championship is commercially sensitive information, and so we would not disclose this, a spokesman said. Known formally as the R&D Trust Company Number 1, the R&D is the collective name of a group of companies that together have a key role in governing the international game. R&D Rules Limited is responsible for the laws of the game. R&D Championships Limited is responsible for organising the Open, along with more than 20 other championships and international matches. And R&D Group Services Limited provides back office and administrative functions. Latest accounts filed at Companies House on behalf of R&D Championships covering the year to December 2022 note that the majority of the company's income is derived from the sale of rights in relation to the Open, including broadcasting and sponsorship rights. Turnover in that year, which included the 150th Open at St Andrews, came in at £147.5 million, up from £114.2 million previously. Cost of sales covering the expense of staging all competitions under the R&D's remit was £115.2 million, up from £88.2 million in 2021. R&D Championships made a profit after tax of £10.7 million in 2022, £10 million of which was handed over to parent company R&D Trust Company Number 1 in the form of a dividend payment. Along with the installation of grandstands, corporate hospitality venues, catering, merchandising and additional parking facilities, the courses themselves at open venues are routinely altered to ensure the most challenging tests possible for the world's top golfers. For this year, architects Mackenzie and Ebert have added 9 new tees to increase the length of the course at Royal Troon by 195 yards to 7,385, just 36 fewer than the record at Carnoustie, home to this year's Senior Open in 2007. New sand traps have been added to the 1st and 6th fairways, and another next to the 6th green, for a total of 98 bunkers throughout. At 623 yards, the 6th hole is also set to become the longest in Open history, while provisions have been made to turn the par 3 postage stamp at the 8th into the shortest hole on record at less than 100 yards. The economic impact of all this golfing pageantry is well documented, with research by Sheffield Hallam University estimating total benefits of £106 million to Scotland from the 2022 Open in St Andrews. Further independent research by YouGov Sport put a value of £201 million on the destination marketing benefits from the event being broadcast around the world. Says Mr. Coulson, I don't think we can look at it purely in financial terms, because if you look at the coverage that you get, it's not the kind of financial transaction that you would have with hosting other events, and certainly not when hosting here at St Andrews, where we have that obligation to play our part in being part of that global golf environment. Report by Christy Dorsey. Evening Times Sport, July 4. Gregor Townsend wants Scotland new boys to make impact. Report by Martin Macmillan. Gregor Townsend is looking for some of his Scotland new boys to extend their international careers past the summer tour, which starts against Canada on Saturday. Head coach Townsend has named 5 uncapped players in his starting 15 for the match at TD Place Stadium in Ottawa, and up to 10 debutants could be involved by the end of the game. Edinburgh centre Matt Curry, wing Aaron Reid, and his Sale teammate scrum half Gus Waugh, second rower Max Williamson, and his Glasgow Warriors back row teammate Gregor Brown all start the match. Northampton hooker Robbie Smith, Glasgow prop Nathan Macbeth, Leicester prop Will Hurd, Oyanak's second row Ewan Johnson, and Edinburgh wing Ross McCann will hope to make their debuts off the bench, with Edinburgh's Patrick Harrison looking to earn his first cap before the end of the tour. After taking on the Canadians, the Scots face the United States in Washington on July 12, then meet the challenge of Chile in Santiago on July 20, before finishing off the tour against Uruguay in Montevideo 7 days later, with Townsend looking to see who grabs their opportunity to become a regular member of his squad. He said, "When we selected the squad, one of the principles we had was, do we believe these players can play for us not just now? They get an opportunity now, but November in the autumn tests and in the Six Nations. That's the goal. Players that we think can make a difference for us as we go into next season. Maybe I can give an example of Elliot Miller-Mills. Elliot was called up on the Sunday night after Will Hurd got injured on the Saturday playing for Leicester the week before we came into our Six Nations camp. He grabbed his opportunity coming off the bench against Wales and in other games, and has taken his game to another level since the Six Nations. Now we have a view of him being someone who's competing really hard with Xander Fagerson. That can not only add depth to us at tight head, but can make a difference when he plays. So there was just one example from the Six Nations. There will be a lot more over the next few weeks of players grabbing their opportunity and being genuine contenders for our test team that plays in South Africa in November. They understand the expectations we have of them, the belief we have in them. Time to adapt. It's not really something at test level you have much of, trying to build cohesion as quickly as possible. What we've seen so far is the players have adapted really well, and they're putting their best foot forward. And with any player that's winning the first cap, we want to see in the performance what got them into the squad and what got them selected in the first place, which is their game, their strengths. Townsend insists the new faces have already brought an excitement to his squad, and he added, "It's exciting, refreshing. It challenges the experienced players to step up, to show their standards of training, what is expected, but also the more established players can learn from these younger players. We know it's going to be a great occasion for a number of players this weekend, winning their first caps, and some of them their first starts, and we are really excited to see them play. They've trained really well. Today's session was excellent in terms of the level of physicality and understanding in such a short time of what we want to do this weekend." Report by Martin Macmillan. Evening Times Sport, July 5. Is Moses' Motherwell career about to take off?" asked Graham McGarry. I know we should not read too much into pre-season friendlies, and had Motherwell been roundly cuffed by FC20 and struggled to beat DSVD, then I would likely be saying just that. But they didn't. A very creditable 2-2 draw against the side that finished third in the Eredivisie last season and made the Champions League qualifiers as a result, followed up by an 8-goal thumping of the Dutch dog and duck, the Hond Ong End, has me firmly on the hype train ahead of the new campaign. On the face of it, Stuart Kettlewell and Brian Caldwell have done a bang-up job of getting the vast majority of the club's transfer business done early in the window, and more than a few of the new boys look promising. But it is a man who was already in situ at Fir Park who perhaps caught the eye the most. That man is Moses Ebeye, who followed up his brilliant opportunistic finish from the halfway line against FC20 with a brace against DSVD. My caveat about pre-season friendlies has to be applied, but I just wonder, if the answer to the hole that will be left in the Motherwell attack due to the probable departure of Theo Bayer is already within the squad. Ebeye has gone under the radar since arriving at Fir Park in March as a free agent, a late arrival after the expiry of his contract with Aalesund. His game time has been limited, partly because Bayer was undroppable in that period, and partly because he was not quite up to full speed after a couple of months out of the game. In his 6 substitute appearances though, totalling just 75 minutes of actual game time, he managed to bag 2 goals. The brilliant half-volley finish at Dens Park that kept the top 6 battle bubbling along to the final week before the split, and the late goal against St Johnstone in the 2-1 defeat towards the end of the campaign. He has looked a little rough around the edges at times, but that is a more than decent return across a very limited sample. It is right, then, to be intrigued by just what Ebeye can produce with a full pre-season behind him, and now that he has had time to get a taste of the league, the environment, and had a chance to digest just what the manager wants from him. The Motherwell attack is something of an unknown proposition at the minute for next term. We have an idea of what Zach Robinson can do after his largely successful spells at Dundee, and given what Kettlewell has said about the qualities of Filip Stuparevic, that he has flair, but also a great work ethic, then it appears on the face of it that Motherwell might have quite a potent mix up top, even if Bayer does move on. Scoring goals was not really the issue last season. Motherwell were the 3rd highest scorers in the league, so the problems clearly lay at the other end, issues that Kettlewell has moved to address, and that can be looked into more detail in the coming weeks. But with the departure of Blair Spittle, and most likely Bayer, it is encouraging to see that there might well still be some real firepower in the ranks. I just have a sneaky feeling that Ebeye might be the ace in the pack, and that he might enjoy the same sort of breakthrough season that Bayer did last time out. Report by Graham McGarry. Evening Times Sport, July 5. Key Rangers transfer factor as Hamza left out of Olympics. Report by Mark Walker. Incoming Rangers star Hamza Igamane has not been included in Morocco's Olympic squad because the Ibrox club will not release him, according to the team's manager. And that means the new signing will get a full pre-season with his new club. Igamani has reportedly secured a work permit and is set to be officially unveiled after his £2 million move from Far Rabat in his homeland. He was widely tipped to be named in Morocco's squad for the Olympic football tournament in Paris this summer, which would have led him missing most of Rangers' pre-season and potentially the big Scottish Premiership kick-off, with the tournament continuing until the middle of next month. But Morocco Olympic boss Tariq Sektiou omitted Igamani from his final squad and revealed that he was one of 9 players refused permission to compete in the tournament by their clubs in Europe. Rangers reportedly joined the likes of Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, PSV Eindhoven, Real Betis and Crystal Palace by declining to release their player for the Olympics because it's not a requirement by FIFA. Sektoui said, "There have been 9 players who have been refused to allow to play by their clubs. We have been left exhausted by these European clubs who tried in every way to prevent the players from being in the squad. I can assure you, our Football Association was trying right up until last night to get players to the squad. Now we simply have to trust the players we have named. It is extremely disappointing for me, and the players will miss out." The Olympic Games take place outside an official window for international football, and FIFA rules state clubs are not obliged to release players for the tournament. Report by Mark Walker. Evening Times Sport, July 5. Fernley happy to fly under the radar. Report by Will Jennings. Jacob Fernley insists he is happy to continue flying under the radar after giving Novak Djokovic a second-round scare on centre court at Wimbledon. The 22-year-old unknown Scot secured a fairy-tale draw after making the hop across the pond from Texas Christian University and unexpectedly booking his place at the All-England club. He toppled higher-ranked Spaniard Alejandro Moro Canas in the opening round on Tuesday and came close to taking Djokovic, a record 24-time Grand Slam champion, all the way in a thrilling encounter 48 hours later. Fernley rallied from 2 sets down to peg the 7-time king of SW19 back before eventually succumbing to a 6-3, 6-4, 5-7, 7-5 defeat in front of a partisan home crowd. The Edinburgh-born ace admits his Instagram followers have skyrocketed, but says nothing will change as he bids to use his big moment as a platform for progression and greater things. Fernley, the current world number 277, said, "I'm going to stay down to earth. At the end of the day, I lost the match. I'm going to give myself a tap on the back and say it was a great summer. I'll go to dinner with my family and we'll talk about it. In the next couple of days it will fizzle out and we'll move on to the next. It's just the start. I've been out of college for a bit over a month, so there's still a lot in the future. I think myself and everyone on my team is well aware of that. I'm not really thinking about added fame. I'm aware that I've gained a lot of Instagram followers, but other than that, nothing. I don't think anything has really changed, and I don't think it's going to really affect me. I'm really proud of my effort. I'm obviously a little bit disappointed to come up with a loss, but I was playing the greatest tennis player of all time on centre court. I was just super grateful to have the opportunity to play on that court against that opponent. Fernley, who followed in the footsteps of Cameron Norrie in opting to move to the States and study at TCU, earned a wild card for the Wimbledon draw after grabbing Rossi Open glory in Nottingham last month, and he took full advantage of that by stunning Canas, ranked 89 places above him, in straight sets. That teed up a tantalising second-round showdown with world number 2 Djokovic, who was sporting a conspicuous grey compression sleeve on his right knee after having surgery. Fernley started brightly in the centre court sunshine as Djokovic looked far from his razor-sharp best. A pair of fizzing backhand winners had the British fans on their feet as that crucial early break continued to evade the Serb. But it eventually came in the 8th game as Djokovic seized daylight and raced into a one-set lead. He went down 6-4 in the second but continued to battle, responding to another Djokovic break to win 2 games on the spin for the first time in the match. And he channeled that momentum to brilliantly win the set, peg Djokovic back, and have Wimbledon daring to dream. Fernley even had a break point to help set up a remarkable deciding set, but after Djokovic resisted and then broke himself, he eventually edged over the line. Djokovic spoke highly of his opponent and said, "Credit to him for playing a really great match. He played on a high level and made me earn it. The match potentially deserved to get into a 5th the way we both played." Report by Will Jennings. Evening Times Sport, July 5. Forgotten Rangers ace can be major unexpected positive. Report by David Irvin. Yanis Hagi was so far out of the first team picture at Rangers that Barry Ferguson forgot about him. The Ibrox hero has admitted Hagi slipped his mind until watching him in action for Romania at Euro 2024. In his daily record column, Ferguson revealed, "I must be honest, I'd almost forgotten about him. It wasn't until the Euros began in Germany and I saw him representing his country that I remembered Yanis Hagi is still actually a Rangers player." The Romanian international spent last season on loan in La Liga after Michael Beale shipped him out to Alaves. This summer, Hagi returns to Rangers, but speculation has already begun over a permanent transfer exit for the 25-year-old. For Ferguson, though, there is merit in Philippe Clement considering Hagi's position at the club, as he insisted the playmaker could be a major asset for Rangers, either in the transfer market or on the pitch. Wrote Ferguson, "Clement will certainly have been paying attention, and it will be interesting to see what the manager has in mind for Hagi's next step. Does he cash in on a player whose value will have shot up? Or does he see a player who is ready-made to step into his own team? Hagi will probably be given some extra time off, but he strikes me as a young man who will want to get back to work as quickly as possible and impress the new man in charge. There has never been any doubt about his talent, and he's shown over the last few weeks he's fully fit and firing again. He could come back in from the cold to become a major unexpected positive at what's been a tricky time for my old club." Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, June 8. Kenny Miller explains unlikely link-up with Delia in Middle East. Report by Robbie Hanratty. Kenny Miller has explained how his surprise link-up with Ronnie Delia came about. It seemed an unlikely combination, with Miller previously facing off against Delia's Celtic teams while he was at Rangers. But the former Scotland striker revealed that he was itching to get back into senior coaching, and that's why it was a no-brainer to say yes when Delia asked him to be his assistant in Abu Dhabi. The pair have taken charge of Al Wada FC, a team that Miller reckons play in an area where football is on the rise, and he wants to use his expertise to bring success to the club. The 44-year-old joked, "It only feels like yesterday that I was scoring goals for Rangers against Ronnie Delia when he was the Celtic gaffer. But now I am in Abu Dhabi, about to start a new coaching adventure as his assistant. The call came out of the blue last week, but it was an opportunity I was keen to pursue, and now I can't wait to get started. I've been out of the game for a year after leaving Huddersfield Town, but I've always been involved due to my media work. For the last 12 months, I've watched loads of games every week and tried constantly to learn. And the truth is, I've been itching to get back onto the training pitch. That's why this was a chance I could not let pass me by. Everyone knows football is really taking off in this part of the world. Ronnie is a winner. He's won leagues in just about every country he's been in, like Norway, Scotland, America and Belgium. So I think we have a similar mentality, and Al Wada are a good fix for us. They're a forward-thinking club who want to be challenging for honours every season. That was key for us in taking on this job. We are excited at what lies ahead. We have signed for a year, and we're going to see where it takes us. The hard work starts now. When I came over last Thursday, I came prepared to stay and get to work. We will take the team to Serbia for pre-season training before the UAE Pro League kicks off, and we are already trying to assess what we've got and talking about the players we would like to attract to the club. I have enjoyed my media work, but I'm a coach who wants to be out there every day working with players, and now I can't wait to get my boots back on. Report by Robbie Hanratty. Evening Times Sport, July 8. Scottish Open story continues as stars align at Renaissance. Report by Nick Roger. Back in 1935, the Glasgow Herald's comprehensive coverage of this old stick and ball game came under the banner "From the Golf Courses," and would document just about every conceivable clatter, batter, dink and dunt, from the cut and thrust of the Open to the nip and tuck at the Busby and Clarkston Ladies' Club. This particular year, there was a new event for the man known as our correspondent to cover, the inaugural Scottish Open over the King's Course at Gleneagles. By the end of it, said correspondent was positively giddy with acclaim as Percy Alice surged to a 4-shot win with a closing 66. Probably never in British golf history has there been such a remarkable finish to a championship, gushed the Herald scribbler on the scene. An average of level 4s as a standard of excellence was swept ruthlessly aside. Ah, the delightful golfing phrases of yore, eh? After that initial staging almost 90 years ago, The Scottish Open was held again in 1936, before disappearing off the face of the earth and not returning until 1972. In the land of milk and honey, that is professional golf in its upper echelons these days, this coming week's star-studded, cash-sodden Genesis Scottish Open at the Renaissance could make the riches of Babylon look like the takings from the Paul Madee car boot sales. Now awash with big names and big bucks, it can be easy to forget about the Scottish Open's years of relative hardship. In 1974, for instance, the championship was binned because organisers could not agree a television contract. The revival of the domestic showpiece had not lasted long. The great Neil Coles, that prolific champion of grand longevity, was the winner in 1972 when the Scottish Open emerged from its 36-year hiatus during the inaugural season of the official European, now DP World, Tour. Downfield in Dundee was the host venue, and Sunbeam Electric, that household appliance company which manufactured a snazzy array of food mixers, waffle irons and toasters, were the sponsors. Old King Coles was certainly a merry old soul, after plundering the first prize of £2,000. His better half was chipper too. When I used to come off the course, I'd ring my wife and say, "I've won," and she'd always ask, "How much?" reflected Coles, who won professional titles across 6 different decades. During my playing career, I won about £430,000 on the main tours, and another £620,000 on the senior circuit, so just over £1 million in 50 years, he said. The winner of the Renaissance next Sunday will pocket around £1.2 million. It's a different ball game. After Graham Marsh's victory over the Old Course in 1973, the Scottish Open was hiked into the long grass again, and was not dug out until 1986, when the Glasgow Classic, which had been staged at Hagg's Castle from 1983 to 1985, was rebranded as the Scottish Open. The Classic, later known as the Glasgow Open, had served up some fine golfing fare on the city's south side. A young Bernhard Langer, who made his final DP World Tour appearance in his native Germany this weekend at the age of 66, won the first edition in 1983, while Ken Brown cantered to an 11-shot romp the following year. Sandy Lyle was beaten in a playoff by Howard Clark in 1985, before the Glasgow Open name was ditched. The Bell's Scottish Open banners went up, and the Deer Green place provided, the green shoots of recovery for a hitherto troubled championship. Jim McAllister, who was a Hagg's Castle club professional for almost 25 years, made his final tour appearance in his own backyard in 1986. Said McAllister, "As the host club pro, I got an invitation. Just making the cut was an achievement, and I managed it. It was nice to show the locals I could still play." Those locals watched David Ferty win the title. The Northern Irishman could certainly play. He could celebrate too. The well-documented story goes that he woke up 48 hours later at Gleneagles, apparently after a shindig with members of rock band Led Zeppelin. The worst part was that the trophy was gone, said Ferty, whose life would be blighted by alcohol and drug dependency. To this day, I have no idea how I lost it or when I lost it, and it was never found. A new trophy has been in the safe hands of another Northern Irishman, Rory McIlroy, for the past year. There will be plenty of big names looking to pinch it off him. McIlroy pipped the gallant Robert McIntyre to the title with a quite thrilling birdie finish. We can only wonder what our correspondent of 1935 would have made of it all, says Nick Roger. Evening Times Sport, July 8. Susan Egglestaff says, 100 years on, Eric Liddell remains a Scottish great. So many of Scotland's sporting greats are from the last few decades: Andy Murray, Chris Hoy, Josh Taylor. And then if you go a wee bit further back, there's Kenny Dalglish, Jackie Stewart, Ken Buchanan, and Liz McColgan. But there is one name that refuses to be displaced on every list of Scotland's greatest sporting athletes for a century: Eric Liddell. This week will be the 100th anniversary of Liddell becoming Olympic champion. The Edinburgh man won 400 metres gold at the 1924 Olympic Games in Paris, in what remains one of the greatest feats in Scottish sporting history. So remarkable was Liddell's story, it was immortalised in the 1981 film, Chariots of Fire. Liddell was born in 1902 to Scottish parents and went to school in China until he was 5, before relocating to boarding school in London. As a teenager, he excelled at rugby, before becoming known as the fastest sprinter in Scotland during his time studying at Edinburgh University. In 1922, he won his first of 7 international caps for Scotland's national rugby union team, but it was 2 years later, as a sprinter, that his achievements would be propelling him into Scottish sporting folklore. Having been selected for Great Britain's team for the Paris Games in 1924, Liddell was strongly fancied as one of the gold medal favourites in the 100 metres. Yet he was destined to not run in his preferred event. Liddell, as the son of 2 missionaries, was highly religious and chose not to race on Sundays. When the schedule for the Paris Games was released, it became apparent that Liddell would not be able to take part in the 100 metres heats as they did, falling on a Sunday. As soon as he realised this, he began training for 400 metres, an event in which he was competent, but certainly did not excel. Liddell was able to run the 200 metres just days prior to the 400 metres, in which he won bronze. Despite that medal, though, he was forced to contend with somewhat less than complimentary press coverage in the lead-up to the 400 metres, in which much of the media expressed their disbelief that he'd prioritised God over Olympic 100 metres success. The day of the 400 metres final arrived, the 11th of July, 1926. Ahead of the race, a team masseur passed Liddell a note with a quote from the Book of Samuel that was made famous in the Chariots of Fire movie: "They that honour me, I will honour." Liddell went on to win the 400 metres by a significant margin of 6 metres, setting a new world record of 47.6 seconds. It was an astonishing performance. In revealing his tactics after the conclusion of the 400 metres final, Liddell said, "The secret of my success over the 400 metres is that I run the first 200 metres as fast as I can. Then for the second 200 metres, with God's help, I run faster." His Olympic title may be Liddell's most renowned achievement, but the remainder of his life was perhaps even more remarkable. Following his success in Paris, the Scot committed fully to missionary work, returning to China in 1925 and being ordained as a minister in 1932. Japan invaded China in 1937, and the British government advised all British nationals to leave the country. But despite his family leaving China for Canada, Liddell himself remained, and in 1943 he was interned by the Japanese authority in a camp at Vientiane. Records show that life in the camp was indescribably harsh for all inhabitants, and in the end, Liddell would not survive the war, although it was an illness unrelated to the invasion that would ultimately end his life. He suffered a brain tumour not long before the conclusion of the war, and died at the age of just 43 in 1945. His legacy lives on, however. When Alan Wells won Olympic 100 metres gold in 1980, the sprinter dedicated his win to Liddell, and following Steph Cook's victory in the inaugural Olympic women's modern pentathlon in 2000, she cited Liddell as one of her inspirations. It is fascinating to look back at Liddell's races. There is the briefest video clip online of his Olympic win, with his distinct style which saw him run with his chin tilted to the sky and his body upright. The ash-grey cinder track on which the 1924 Olympics took place is a world away from the high-tech tartan tracks of today, and the competitors are dressed almost identically, all in white, with only their numbers pinned onto their chest, able to be used to distinguish them from each other. Liddell's best 400 metres time of 47.6 seconds, while slower than the current world record of 43.03 seconds, set by Wade van Niekerk in 2016, remains highly respectable considering it was a century ago. The comparison between eras remains fascinating to me, despite the fact it's utterly futile in the sense that a definitive conclusion as to whose achievements deserve greater credit can never be settled upon. But it is hard to believe that Liddell, if competing today with modern spikes, on state-of-the-art tracks, and with the luxury of being a full-time athlete, would not still be one of, if not the very best, in the world. We will, of course, never know if that is true. But what is certain is that Liddell's achievements, and particularly his Olympic title, have endured over a century, and he quite rightly remains a permanent fixture on almost every list of Scotland's greatest athletes of all time. 100 years on from that Olympic gold medal winning run, Liddell's story remains as compelling as ever, says Susan Egglestaff.
That concludes this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Q and Review, and to tell your friends about our service